want to use the opportunity to welcome every one of you to class again. Today is day 2 of our estimation and scheduling technique. So what I'm going to do right now, I will run through yesterday's class in 15 minutes like I promised us, so that I'll just have an idea of where we were, and those who were not in class yesterday can, come up to speed. Okay, so yesterday, as a way of introduction, right, I said we cannot talk about estimation in projects, right, without understanding what project is. And so I took my time to begin to just revise a bit what project is, project management, who a project manager is. Now, I remember saying that the most viable of all projects can still fail. It can fail for several reasons, but top among the reasons is inadequate estimate or inaccurate estimate. Inaccurate is when you estimate it and it's wrong. Inadequate is when you estimate it, but you underestimate it. And so your clients has a very wrong view of what the timeline is and the cost is, right? So I also said that it is difficult for you to say you want to now plan a project if you do not have the right estimate, right? So it is very, very important that the relationship between estimating and project is well understood. I went ahead to talk about what a project is. I said a project is not just a building construction. Most of us see project as a building construction. That's what we define project as. But I told us yesterday that a project is actually any temporary thing you are doing that has a start date, it has an end date, it has a unique product to deliver, or it has a service to deliver, it has an objective to meet. Whether it's a birthday party, once there is a budget and a start time and an end time, or start date or end date, it becomes what? A project. I went to say that project management is the application of knowledge to project activities. Now, let me explain that a bit, right? From my definition of project, you can see that project has a certain kind of attributes. What are the attributes of a project, right? The attributes of a project are that it has a start date and end date. It has a unique objective, a unique product to deliver. Then it must have a baseline. A baseline is the boundary within which you manage your project. I also said yesterday that a project must also have set of activities to be managed. When you have a project, the best way, you can't manage it as one whole thing. You need to break it down into and even go further to break the activities down into tasks to be able to now, manage the project properly. So project management is applying knowledge and skill to project activities so that it can meet a certain requirement or a certain objective. That's project management. Then a project manager is that person that you saddle with the responsibility of using resources, using the skill, managing them. The person who manages the skills, the resources, the tools to be able to achieve project objective is the person that we call the project manager. Now, what do we estimate? Yesterday, I said basically when you want to estimate, you estimate time, you estimate cost, you can go ahead to estimate efforts and resources. But for the purpose of this class, we're going to be, looking at cost estimates and then time estimates. I ran up through our table of contents yesterday, and I think we covered 1, and then we were on number 2, which is estimation technique. So I'm going to continue from estimation technique today, and we will see where we will go. Now, before I talk about estimation technique, what is an estimate? An estimate is simply a rough calculation of something. That is the process of approximating what it takes in terms of money and time to get a work done. The goal is to get the most accurate and adequate value. Accurate and adequate value. It can either be of cost, that's your budget, or time, which is your schedule. All right. So estimation is very, very important. Let's say a few reasons why estimation is important, right? Now, I told us yesterday, when a project is ongoing and we run out of funds, I have discovered from experience that most times it's really not because the client does not have money or the sponsor does not have more money, but it's because the project team or project manager would have inadequately provided for some money. So when something is supposed to cost 10 million, for example, and you made a mistake and you tell the client 7 million and the clients have provided 7 million, what it means is that you run out of fund, not because there was no fund, but because it is inadequately estimated. So that's why understanding estimation technique is very, very key and important. Now, without accurate estimate, of course, it's impossible to plan your project. Then guess what? If you don't have an idea of how long the project will take or what resources you need, there is no way you will have the right people, material, or tools available when you need them. You need to know how long something is going to take. If you know how long it's going to take, you now break it. For example, if it's 10 days, you can break it into day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5 to day 10. Then you now arrange what you need on day 1, on day 2, on day 3, like that until you are done with the project. If you don't estimate well, you will not be able to do that. So the importance of estimation can actually not be overemphasized. Then I also looked at triple constraint yesterday, and I told us the reason why I called it the triple constraint. I call it the triple constraint because they are interrelated, interwoven. One cannot exist without the other. And I called them what yesterday? I called them cost, time, and the scope. I call them cost, time, and scope. And I said that it's represented by what? By a what? By a triangle. By a triangle. The triple constraint says that when one item is changed, there is a surety that every other thing is also going to change. So we looked at cost, we looked at time, we looked at scope yesterday. And I remember saying that scope is your entire work, understanding what are we doing, what exactly we are doing gives you the scope. Now, when changes are made to the scope, it will definitely affect both your cost and your time. That's why we say that the constraints is a constraint because changes to one will inevitably impact on the other two. Now, what I started yesterday, I think I put my cost on one side of the triangle. I put my time, and I also put my what? My scope. And I said everything will impact on what? The quality of your what? The quality of your what? Of your delivery. It's impacted by these three constraints. So I remember saying if you add scope or some work to your scope and you decide not to change your cost and or time, what you are doing is that you want them to do a substandard work for you. Now, I went ahead to give us a little definition of quality. I said quality is actually the standard that you and the client or the owner of the project agreed on. The acceptable standard is the quality of your work, the acceptable standard, right? Now, we went ahead immediately and we started on estimation techniques. So I'll quickly revise the estimation techniques again. Estimation technique is simply the way to create your project estimate. Now, we have several ways, but the major ones are the ones that I'm going to discuss in this project. Are you still with me? Can somebody hear me? Can you just confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you very much. So project estimating technique helps project managers to accurately estimate essential elements, such as your cost, your time, and your scope. This technique can be used to properly plan allocation of resources and helps to give your client a forecast. It gives your client a forecast. You can tell your client For example, I gave an example yesterday. Somebody walks up to you and says, I want to do a 3-bedroom flat. How much does it cost me? You can easily forecast and say that, okay, what is kind of 3-bedroom flat do you want? If you have done something similar, you can easily just tell your client that, okay, a typical 3-bedroom flat will cost you 20 million, for example, because you just did it. So you can actually forecast things to your client if you know how to estimate very, very quickly. Now, the kind of question your client asks you will determine what kind of estimate estimation technique you will use for your client at that material time. Some estimation techniques are faster. So if your client is in a hurry, for instance, you may want to use the analogous technique. If your client is also not too much in a hurry, you can just go ahead and use the bottom-up technique. Now, if your client already has his mind fixated on a budget, then what type of technique do you use? You use the top-down estimation technique. Now, let me quickly run through them. Now, I say number one, analogous estimation technique is also known as comparative estimation technique. Now, this technique, I said yesterday, uses past data to estimate. If the average completion time or cost of a similar project that you've done recently is right on your fingertip, this is the best method for you to use. So let me give an example of the client that I gave yesterday. I said if the client comes to you and say that I want to do a 3-bedroom flat, how much will it cost? Analogous estimate will use data from similar and most likely recent projects. So if you have done a 3-bedroom flat recently and it gives you spend 20 million, you can tell the client that say, no, a 3-bedroom flat will cost you approximately 20 million naira if it's at this kind of location or if it's with this level of finishes. So you need to state your assumptions because you just did it. And you can tell him that it will take you 6 to 8 months to complete. The reason is because you just completed a similar project. And because you have done a similar thing in 8 months, it's easy for you to just forecast and tell the client using this analogous method of estimation. Now, I said something key yesterday I want to repeat today. That if you are using this method, the project you are comparing with must be similar. Must be similar. So if it does not have similarity, you cannot use this method to work to complete it. Now, another one I talked about yesterday is the parametric estimating technique. Now, parametric estimating technique is a little bit mathematical in the sense that the example I gave yesterday, I say if the client, says, for example, or rather, the work you did recently was a 3-bedroom flat that costed you 20 million naira. And that 3-bedroom flat was 100 square meters. What you will now do is to tell your client that, oh, a typical 3-bedroom flat will cost 200,000 naira per square meter to build. How did you arrive at it? You just did 3-bedroom of 100 square meter that I just completed for 20 million naira. 20 million divided by 100 square meter is 200,000 naira per square meter. So you can easily tell the client, if 3-bedroom is 50 square meter, for example, if the design is 50 square meter, you can just tell the client that, oh, very, very good, 50 square meter times 200,000, your approximate cost is maybe 10 million naira. If his 3-bedroom flat design is 70 square meter, just multiply 200,000 per square meter by 70 square meter, and it gives you what? 14 million naira. So this is the parametric method. It uses data, and the technique takes details of projects and prorates it to get what? Current projects. Are you following me? Are you still with me?
Yes, I'm with you, sir.
Beautiful. Chimeze, welcome to class today. Can you hear me? Okay. Chimeze, you need to unmute yourself. Let me hear you. Let me be sure you are following me today. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. Thank you very much for responding. All right, let's continue. Now, the third estimation technique I started on yesterday, but I didn't finish, is the top-down estimation technique. The top-down estimation technique. And what did I say about it yesterday? I say a top-down estimating technique assigns an overall cost of time to project and then breaks it down into phases and all that. Now, let me give a practical example, like I did yesterday. If this kind of estimating technique, you use it when a client comes to you and says, I want a 3-bedroom flat, but what I have is 20 million naira, right? So let me use my screen a bit. Can you confirm that this, my board, is clear?
Yes, sir.
It's clear. Can you see what I've written
Yes.
on the board? Okay, so let's see how to use the top-down. Top-down estimating technique, right? Chimeze, let me just get a little perspective. What do you do? Are you a QS, an accountant, architect, or engineer?
Town planner.
Town planner, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. I just want to have that perspective. Now, so what the top-down estimate does is if a client comes to you and it says, I want to do a 3-bedroom flat and all I have is 10 million naira. How do you go about it? Now, let me stop sharing so that my screen can be bigger. Is it bigger now on your side?
Yeah, it's fair.
Okay, beautiful. So this is what you do for the client. Now, most times the estimation technique, right? They are most times they are interrelated. They're interrelated. So right now you are going to mix both the analogous parametric to give this guy what he wants. If he says he wants to do a 3-bedroom flat and all he has is 10 million, what you would do as a project manager is to ask yourself, the most recent work I did, a 3-bedroom flat, how did I go ahead with it? You can, for example, 3-bedroom flat, right? 3-bedroom flat has what? It has the foundation, it has the super structure, it has what else? Roofing, and let's say it has finishing. Even as a town planner, right? Chimeze, and somebody tells you to design maybe a layout that is maybe, let me say, maybe 50 hectares. You want to lay it out for someone, a real estate firm or a real estate, developer. You can also use this method. I'll try and give some. Okay, Sukomit says he can't hear me clearly. Can you hear me clearly now?
So I can't see the board clearly, sir. So
you can't see the board clearly. How about now? You will ask yourself, the last time I did the 3-bedroom flat, what percentage of my cost went to foundation? For example, I gave an example yesterday that, for example, it was 20%. Then if for finishing, you will ask yourself, what percentage went to finishing? Example, 25%. Superstructure, maybe you spent another 25%. Maybe for roofing, it was 15%. Right? So you can give the balance of maybe 15% to maybe other costs. Other costs can be 15%, right? So it's now easy for you to just do, if the client says, okay, he has 10 million naira to do this 2-bedroom flat, 3-bedroom flat, you can now begin to say, okay, what is 20% of the 10 million naira allocated to foundation? So the client may now want to know how much will it cost me to do foundation. So you can now just do 20% of 10 million, I think it's 2 million naira, right? So you can just tell the client to prepare 2 million naira for foundation, prepare 3 million naira for superstructure, 3 million naira for finishes, 10% for maybe 1.5 million naira for other costs, and another 1.5 million naira for roofing. Because you have recently done it, so you can easily just prorate. What have you just done now is a top-down estimate. Now, like I say, you use it in conjunction with the analogous and parametric. It may not be accurate, but the most accurate is the one I'm going to go and talk about now, which is actually the bottom-up estimate. And that's what I recommend for any, a quantity surveyor. If you are a project manager and you want to give estimate, I advise you to use the bottom-up. Now, bottom-up is a little bit, it consumes a bit of more time, but it gives you the most accurate. Now, the reason why I still tell people to master analogous, parametric, and top-down is because sometimes your clients may not have the time to wait. They may just want to have a rough idea so you can quickly use these other three approaches. Now, the bottom-up. What is the bottom-up? A bottom-up, of course, is just of the top-down. And then what happens is that you start by estimating individual tasks. So what you are going to do is very simple here. Let me see you, since we are all in the built environment here, let me keep using the example of this 3-bedroom flat, right? What you do with a bottom-up is that you need to sit with your team and break the activity into small tasks. Small tasks. In project management, we call them work packages. Work packages is the lowest level that you can break a work to for the purpose of ease in estimating. Because it's easy for me to give you the cost of digging separately, blinding my foundation, cost of laying block per cost. I'll now give you the cost of German floor, the cost of hardcore, and now add all together and say this is the cost of my foundation. It's easier and more accurate that way than for me to use the first method I use, top down, which says a 10% of your cost should go to foundation. It's a bulk estimate, but this breaks it down. That's what makes it very accurate. So how do you go about with bottom up? Let me use the same example. You have a 3-bedroom, right? When you have a 3-bedroom, the first thing is foundation. So you go ahead and break your foundation into, for example, dig trench, right? When you dig trench, you will now say concrete footing, which is what we call blinding, concrete footing. Then you are still on foundation. What's the next stage in foundation? After concrete footing, you say lay foundation block wall. After laying foundation block wall, you may decide to now say backfill. You backfill. After backfilling, please, you can use the chat box if you have question or you want me to you are not following me or I'm breaking. Just use the chat box so that I can see it. But let me just confirm. Are you guys still with me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you, sir.
All right, beautiful. Thank you very much. So you backfill. After backfilling, still on foundation, you have add core. After add core, still on foundation, you can now say DPM. Let me say lay DPM. After laying of DPM, you now say DPC, which is the what we call German floor, right? So if you have broken foundation down this way, you can now also take superstructure and break down into activities, right? Superstructure. You can take your roofing, break it down, what are the steps and tasks required for roofing. You can also take your finishes and break it down. into individual tasks. So if you are broken it down like this, it's easy for you to now dig trench and ask yourself, how much will I pay to dig trench? You now look at the drawing. The trench is maybe 200 meters long, and a trench is being dug for maybe 300 naira per meter, per linear meter. You will multiply 300 naira by, let's say, a foundation trench of 200 meters. 300 times 200, let's assume, gives you 300 times 200. That's about, let's say, 60,000, for example. I think 60,000. You now record your 60,000, right? Record 60,000 for foundation trench. You now say concrete footing. How much does it cost to do concrete per cubic meter? You need to calculate the volume of concrete. I'm going to teach that in another class later, how to calculate, the volume of concrete for your foundation footing. So what you do, you take the length. Let's say your foundation footing is 2 cubic meter. How much does it take to produce concrete? You can now use maybe an analogous method and just do maybe 30,000 per cubic meter. 30,000 times 2 cubic meter, that's 60,000 also. Or if you have a QS in-house, or you even have an experience, you can call, your foreman and ask him, okay, if I want to blind this foundation of 200 meters, how many bags of cement? So you can do it as a material and labor schedule instead of doing it as a cubic meter, the way quantity surveyors do it. They use cubic meter, square meter area, and linear meters to cost their work. But you can actually use a foreman, method and just say how many bags of cement. You calculate the price for each bag of cement. How many sand do I need? You calculate it. How much stone do I need? You calculate it. Then how much am I going to pay the mason? You calculate it. If you sum everything together, concrete lining may give you 50K, which is 50,000. Then you go ahead and lay the number of blocks. How many blocks can go into a 200 meter foundation? The length of a block is maybe 450 meters. You now divide 200 meters by 450 meters. You are likely to get maybe approximately 400 blocks in the foundation per course. So depending on how high your design is, so you need to, at this point, work with your team. What is the height specified for this foundation in the drawing? If the height is 3 courses of block, you multiply 400 blocks by 3 courses. That's 1,200 pieces of block is going into your foundation. You multiply it by the price of block, you get the quantity of sand, get the price of quantity of sand, you get how much does a mason charge to lay a block. Let's say 40 naira, 40 naira times 1,200 blocks, you get all that cost. I'm just assuming everything amounts to 120K. You put your 120K here. You do the same thing for backfilling. Let's say it gives you 30K. You analyze it here. Add core. How much do they supply add core per ton? Now, I think it's measured per ton. Let's say you spend 70K on your add core. You write it. DPM is the place waterlogged. Do I need to put the improved membrane? It's a good practice, whether it's waterlogged or not. Just put the damp-proof membrane so that it's a black leather that we put on foundation to prevent rising down. You cost that. Let's say you are going to spend 20K. Then how much will you spend to cast your German floor? Let's say 100K. So bottom-up estimating technique says that you add up all the individual tasks, costs, and time. You add it up and roll it up. At the end of the day, 100, 20, 70, 190, 190, 120, which is plus 120, 120 plus 190, 310, plus 30,000, 340, plus 50,000, 390, plus 60,000, that's 450K. So you can see that you have your cost of foundation as 450K, right? So this is bottom up. It is the most accurate. You take your estimate from the bottom and then you take it all the way up until you reach the foundation activity. Then after you have finished foundation, you do the same thing for superstructure, do the same thing for roofing, do the same thing for finishing. By the time you sum all of them up, it automatically gives you the cost of a 3-bedroom bungalow. Are we following me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does everybody have any question before I go to the next method of estimating? You can use the chat box to ask questions. Because each activity is being assessed and estimated individually, this type of estimate is the most accurate than the top-down or parametric or analogous estimate. But like I said, it takes more time, right? So Sukomi, as a QS, right? If you want to pick them item by item like that, and you are estimating, it's good you use the next method of estimating and add to it, which is number one, expert judgment. What is an expert judgment? Expert judgment is actually the most popular tool, and it's quick and easy, and you can use it in conjunction with your top down and also your bottom up. How do you do that? For example, you have broken it into different activities: deep trench, concrete, lay, foundation. You can now begin to ask your foreman or your mason. You can just tell the mason, wait, I want to lay 1,200 blocks in foundation. How much does it cost me? The mason, because he's hands-on and he does it every day, can easily give you that. Or you can have an architect friend who you can now talk to. The architect friend can now just tell you, oh, if you want to estimate for 1,200 blocks, this is what it is likely to cost. Oh, Oyebanka, it's good to have you here. If you can hear me, can you just speak? Let me hear your voice.
Yes, so I can hear you. So sorry for joining late.
Okay, it's okay. I started off from where we stopped yesterday, top-down estimate. I don't know if you can see my screen. I've done a lot of analysis on top-down. For instance, somebody tells you, I have 10 million naira for a 3-bedroom bungalow. It's your job now, using methods, to ask you, okay, what percentage of a 3-bedroom bungalow can a foundation be? So, for example, if the foundation is 20%, you will now take 20% of the cost and allocate to foundation, maybe 25% to superstructure, 30% to other aspects. So it's easy for you to give the client, a rough estimate. So I went to bottom up, which is the most accurate, which is what you can see on the board right now back here. So what I said about bottom up is the one you are used to as a QS. You just take the individual and you move on. So I'm going to circulate this video, so don't worry if you miss any part.
All right, no problem.
I'll let you watch it. So I was talking about expert judgment before you came in, and Banke. What I said about expert judgment is you can use it in conjunction with other estimation techniques, so that, because bottom up takes a lot of time. Let me go back my slide a bit. I say bottom up, is the most accurate, but because individual tasks are being assessed, it takes more time. So for you to cut down on your time, you now need some other estimation techniques that you need to mix with it to be able to cut down on your timing. Now, what are they? Number one, expert judgment. You can now look for, you have architects around you, you have an engineer friend, you even have a foreman or a mason that is very, very experienced. So what this estimation technique says is, after you have broken down, let me go back to my screen a bit. After you have broken down all these activities into various individual tasks, before you came in, Banky, I told them that these individual small tasks, they are called work packages. Work package is the smallest level you can break a task to, so that you can easily meet it. So expert judgment says you have estimated trench, concrete footing, and then lay DPM. You don't know how much to put to it. So expert judgment just say you just pick up your phone and call an architect. Wait, if I want to cast a foundation of maybe 56 square meter, what's the volume of DPM I need to buy? The person cannot give you, oh, don't worry, from experience, I bought maybe 2 rolls or 5 kg. 5 kg should cost you between 18 to 25,000. So that's an expert judgment. you want to calculate DPM, how many volume of concrete on your German floor, you can quickly call an engineer. Wait to, I think I need to quickly cast a DPC now. Do you have an idea how much I can quickly do this? Because you know he does it every day, it's easy for him to give you that cost. Expert judgment also says that you want to lay foundation block. You can just call a mason who may be a stone throw away and just ask him. And then the mason can give you an idea to say, oh, to lay 120 blocks, you will pay me, let's say, 40 naira per block. Oh, and when you pay me 40 naira per block, you will give me maybe 10 bags of cement. So what have you just done? You have used expert judgment to allocate costs to this small task called work packages. So it's easy for you to roll it up and then you get your estimate. Now, this estimation technique is not just for cost. You can use it for time also. You want to know the average time it will cost you to lay this 1,200 block in your foundation. You can just call a foreman and say, wait, how long do you think it will take for you to lay 1,000 block? You will now say, oh, if I'm working with two masons, me and that mason, if we lay 150 block a day, we can lay 300 blocks in a day for you. So, and because you have 1,200 blocks to lay, you can just divide 1,200 blocks by 300 blocks with two masons working. And what do you get? You get 4 days. So you can tell the client, oh, I can lay this 1,200 blocks in 4 days. If the client said, no, I want to do it in 2 days, you see, you are left bottom up again to top down, inside bottom up. So you now need to go and say, okay, for me to now lay 1,200 in 2 days for these clients, since two masons can do 300, let me increase my number of masons to 4 so that I can now do what? I can now lay 1,200 blocks in 2 days. And then that's how to use expert judgment, right? It is most useful when you are planning a standard project that is similar to projects your team has completed before. Yes, that's what I just said. The architect, the engineer must have done a similar project very recently before you give them. Because if you call anybody and he says, no, I've not done something like that recently, or you're missing, say, let me call another person, just look for another expert judgment. So expert judgment can be used in creating whether it's top down or bottom up. Now, another useful, technique is what we call the 3 points. Now, I won't go too deep. I have another class that is going to tackle this, but 3 points is very easy. You just get 3 experts and ask them, questions. Some of them can give you, for example, how much does it cost to lay 1,200 blocks? Somebody can give you 60. Somebody can give you 70. Somebody can give you 80. But you know that these 3 persons are experts. So you now have an optimistic, you have a pessimistic, and then you have a most likely based on your own experience to whether it's for cost or it's for time. And then you take the averages, and then you now get your rough estimate, and then you move ahead. Now, I want to go into basis of estimate. I don't know if there is any question so far. You can use the chat box. If there's no question, you can just, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think from here I'm clear. We can move on. I don't know about the rest.
Okay, beautiful.
Somebody has dropped a message here.
Okay. Most of the client prefer the cost for the top down. Prefer the cost of what?
The cost for the top down. Is it that most clients prefer?
Prefer the cost for the top
bottom estimation method.
Okay, I'm trying to get it. Are you saying most clients prefer you to use top down for them?
That's key because there's a question mark at the end.
Yes. So must the client prefer the cost for the top bottom estimation method? Oh, I'm trying to get it. I
think what the person is trying to say, sorry, Mr. Jonathan, is it that most clients prefer the cost for the top bottom estimation method? It's like most clients, if I'm able to interpret what the person is asking.
Okay.
Because there's a question mark at the end.
Now.
Okay, let me clear. Can I clear there?
Yes, thank you.
When you were explaining the top bottom method, you said the client could give you a cost. He has a cost in mind already. He said, okay, I have 20 million. You understand? Can this 20 million give me 3-bedroom flats. You know, he gave you a cost. Must the client provide that cost for you to use top-bottom method, or that cost must not be preferred? That's what I'm trying to find out.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. I get the question now. Now, like,
all right,
it's not top bottom. It's actually top down estimate.
Top down.
Top down, yes. Top down.
Yes. Yes. Top down, yes. Top down.
We have top down and we have bottom up. Right now, the top down you can use. So let me go a bit back so that you can see. Now this is it, top down, right? And then
yes,
up.
Yes.
Yes. So we are talking about now top down. You can use it. It's not just when the client gives it to you. In that case, it's called a baseline. You have given yourself a baseline.
Baseline. All right.
Okay, so you work within that baseline. So all right. So look at basis of estimate. The basis of estimate. What I'm trying to do with this is, if you are estimating, it's not good that you just give a client figure of either cost or time, and you don't know how you arrive at it. That is what I want to say. It's good you know how to arrive at it. No, now, so this basis of estimate section will talk to us about what do you consider before you beat your chest and tell your client that this figure I'm giving you for cost or time is tenable and it's viable and it can fly. So now I'll skip all this. I'll share the slide. So I'll skip all this. Number one, your estimates, number one, should be based on past data or past experience. Always make sure that if you are using any type of estimating technique, that there is a data upon which your estimate is based. What do I mean? For the analogous, I told you it is to be based on similar past projects, based under the same condition and in the same location. So you let the client know that this cost I've given you is because this, I'm assuming this 3-bedroom is going to be built under XYZ condition. So you must have past experience or past data. Like I said, a data can be for parametric estimate. For example, you can divide cost into square meter. You can say, I gave you this cost because your bungalow is 60 square meter, and I know the price per square meter is XYZ from what I have done in the past. So that's the first basis of estimate you should always try to use. Number two, it should be based on also available documents and knowledge. So if the client now asks, okay, can you share with me? You should be able to share. It's not that you send a WhatsApp message and say, I am charging you 5 million per. So when the client requests for a document, how did you arrive at it? You must be able to provide a document, or from your knowledge, you can now break down and say it is 5 million because foundation is this is that, and then you break down. So it forms another basis of estimate. Then assumptions can also form basis of estimate. For example, right, if it's like I told someone yesterday and in my class last week Saturday, who was asking whether a birthday party can be a project. I said, yes, if you just did a birthday party for 200 persons and you spent 1 million naira, and another person asks you to organize a birthday party for him, and you tell the person is 1 million, you have to tell him that I am assuming you are inviting only 200 persons. Though. If you invite more than 200 persons, then my assumption is now wrong. For the building, you will tell the person, if you built it in Nasarawa in one village, you can tell the person, I am assuming that you are building it in a village that is similar to where I built the one I just built. Another assumption can be the soil condition. You can also tell the person, I am assuming your ground does not have water, or your ground is rocky or not rocky. Those kind of assumptions. And most times it's important to state it. It's important to state it. Now, let me give you another example of assumption, right? You can tell the person that I built that foundation in 7 days because it was not raining. Do you understand? So you can state it and say that I am assuming that it will not rain for the 7 days duration of your foundation. If it rains, my estimate may change, whether in number of days or a number of bags of cement that will go into that foundation. You will have to now cater for the risk of labor. Let's say you finish laying block, 2 hours later, rain fell and brought the wall down. You will pay the mason again to lay. So you have to state all these assumptions for them to know. This is rainy season now. So it's very advisable when you are giving any client estimate during rainy season, you need to let him know that, oh, if I told you it's going to take this time, if rain falls, it may take more than that. Then you need to talk about your identified risks too. There may be risk factors. Now there is a separate, class of risk management. I don't want to talk about that. Then the resources that are available for you. For example, you ask yourself, do I have 3 masons on my list? Do I have 4? Do I have 2? You will consider it before you estimate. So if you only have access to 2 masons, you have to base all your estimate at the back of your mind that the resources I have is 2 masons. The same way, especially when you are doing a top-down, when a client have told you my pocket is small, this is exactly, it's good you always ask your client, how much do you have? So that you tell him, can he do it or can he not do it before you start the work, right? So you need to have at the back of your mind all your resources. Then you need to keep at the back of your mind quality. Yesterday, I talked about the triple constraints, and I said, because they are interrelated, if you change one, for example, scope, you remove from scope or you add to the scope, it will affect the time and the cost. I now said something. I said, if you add to the scope and you are stubborn or your client is insistent that the cost and time must not change, what has the client done? He is willing to compromise quality. At that moment, I defined quality. What is the quality? Quality is what you and the client has agreed to do. The acceptable standard that you and the client have agreed to meet is what we call quality. Then I have some guidelines here. You must keep in mind the following guidelines when you're estimating. Ask other people's experience, put your experience. Resources will be productive for 80% of the time. Now, let me talk a little bit about this, right? Even if your expert judgment tells you that with 4 masons, you can build 1,200 blocks in 2 days, what I usually advise people and what I do is that I will, to cater for some risk element, I will assume that the productivity will only be 80%. So if Mason tells me, don't worry, me and my colleague can do 300 blocks, I will just do 80% of 300. But anything can happen. They can start feeling a day and go and rest for 30 minutes or 1 hour and may not be able to complete your 300. So I will just do, okay, 10% of 80% of 300 blocks that they have promised me is what? For example, I think 80% of 300 is 240. So I will use 240 blocks when I'm planning the duration. So I will now say, okay, they can lay 240 blocks. That is what I will now use to calculate my 1,200 blocks. So instead of maybe 4 days for 2 masons at 300 blocks, I will now extend it to 5 days for them. Then, if they also charge me money, I will now take 80%. For example, I will just state that what they have charged me can complete 80% of the work. So for my client, I will add a little bit more so that in case it happens that the mason now couldn't complete the work he wanted to complete in 1 day, I will still pay him his full day, but I have some contingency left, which the client has paid me for the additional day that may be added. So that's what I mean by this guideline when you are estimating. Always use 80%. Personally, that's what I do, and that it has worked for me, and I've advised people to do it, and it worked for them too. Don't always think that your masons should be 100% accurate, right? Now, let me just make a statement that, but when I am dealing with the mason on site, I will not tell the mason, don't worry about it. I have assumed that it's only 80% of the work you will do. I won't say that. So come here, you're a QS, you hear me? So you still force the mason to do the 300 he promised you every day. But you know at the back of your mind that what you are prepared for is 80% of the work. Now I say resources working on multiple projects must also be taken into account. That's also another thing you need to know. Now, how do I do this? I have maybe an engineer, I have an architect, I have a storekeeper, for example, who may be reporting to another, maybe there's another project or work that he has. As professionals, some of us even have PP. So when you are estimating, you need to consider, what if the other work that this person is working on takes him out for 1 day or for 2 hours? So you must consider that, okay, my mason can wake up in the morning and tell me he's sick. But that he is sick is probably that he wants to come and go and make one quick money somewhere, because you are aware that it's not only your project he has on his diary, he also has another project that he probably kept boys there to do for him, and he's also working on your own. So when you have resources who are working on multiple projects, you should consider if you allow more time so that it can cater for any loss in switching from one job for the other. It's the same thing as using 80% of your, how did I put it now? You estimate assuming that the productive resource hour will just be 80% of what they have promised you. Another one is to include management time in any estimate. Management time, I look at management time in 2 ways. So when I'm estimating, sometimes you may just say that if my mason finish working by 5, or he work for 2 days, on the 3rd day I pay, you may send payment to the office depending on how complex the organization is, and the delay in making payments. You have to factor that time when you're estimating, for time especially. Now you can send payment to the bank and it takes 3 days for them to get the money. What if it takes 3 days and they are off? You have to factor that side. You can also factor in that, okay, your supervising team, maybe your CEO and other people just come to site, and at that moment work has to stop. If they spend 2 hours on time, it distracts everybody. You have to factor all those time in your estimate. Then of course, building contingency for problem solving. You may just get to site and every other place when they were excavating was soft. Then there's a particular place that was now rock. There was now a lot of problem. You are trying to hire or rent jackhammer. You are unable to rent jackhammer. So you need to, from experience, know that, okay, I need to gather my team. We need to clean meat. How do we take decision on this? This is unexpected, but it has happened. What is the solution? You create that kind of time in your estimate. Like I told you, when you're estimating and you have broken your activities into various tasks or work packages, you are not just estimating for cost, you are also estimating for time. Allow time always to do proper estimate. Like I advise people, you can start with the analogous estimate, parametric estimate, or even take a bulk part and do a top-down estimate. But I would always advise people, take out time and do a bottom-up. If you don't have the requisite experience to do a bottom-up, hire a quantity surveyor. Quantity surveyor, it is their work to do what they call the BOQ, bills of quantity. If the work too is too complex for the quantity surveyor, I always advise, clients, hire an engineer to give you what we call a BEME. A BEME is called bills of engineering measurement. So sometimes the work will be too complex and the quantity surveyor may not understand the intricacies of the reinforcement rebar and the sequence they should come. So, but an engineer can just break it down into bills of engineering measurement. What it does is that it just breaks the work down into the work packages. Then the QS can now accurately estimate it. So for very large projects, I always advise people to use the bottom up and do not rush your estimates. Rush estimates are likely to be inaccurate, inadequate, and carries a lot of more risk, especially on very large projects. Now, where possible, use documented data for your organization's similar project to result in a more accurate. Okay, I think I've talked about that. So now let me go back a bit. The way I end that, I say if you do not keep record, it's now the good time to start collecting data. You need data. When you finish a project, it's good you just document it somewhere. In my organization, we keep what we call issue log. So when you document the risk and the things you went through or how much you spent per square meter, you can easily go to your archive and pull out data. And then you go ahead and use. Okay, all right. So I think I have exhausted this enough. Use different people to estimate supplies. It just give you a lot of time. So now I want to talk about the WBS. WBS is a work breakdown structure. But let me ask, is there any question on estimation guideline? You can use the chat box. Okay, can you hear me? I can't get any response.
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, beautiful. So let me assume others can also hear me, right? So let's go ahead to what we call the work breakdown structure. Work breakdown structure, which is what we call the WBS. Now, what is the WBS? What is the work breakdown structure? Now, let me say something here. If you don't understand the WBS, it becomes very, very difficult for you to estimate your work, whether it is time or it is cost. So it's a very, very important and crucial concept, right? Now, what's the WBS? A WBS is the hierarchical decomposition of work. Don't mind the big English. It's simply breaking down the work you want to do. Like I did earlier with the 3-bedroom flat, I broke down the foundation. So, but now the work that is supposed to be done, you break it down into individual tasks. But you need to go further and give them an ID, which is what makes it easy for you to capture your scope well. You give it an ID. What the ID does for you is, you know which one is your deliverables, at what point you have a deliverable, at what point and at what cost, right? So if you need to deliver a milestone, breaking them down into WBS and allocating those, IDs, usually they are numbers, the way we do for projects, our projects in school, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.1.1, 1.1.2. It helps you to organize your work. Now, it organizes and defines your total scope. If you get your WBS wrong, there is a tendency that an item of your scope will be missed out. So whatever is not in the WBS, like most project managers will say, if it is not in the WBS, it's not part of the work and it's not part of the scope. So WBS organizes and defines the total scope of the work you want to do in a descending level until you get the required details for your work, right? Now, I mentioned it earlier that you need to decompose or break down your to the smallest measurable parts. That smallest measurable part is what we call the work package, the lowest level of the WBS, easily estimated. For example, I took foundation before. It's easy for you to estimate trench digging, footing, foundation block, backfilling, estimate them individually than for you to estimate foundation as one whole block. And sometimes it's even easier for you to now break down, like maybe backfilling further. For example, you may want to say, okay, deliver stuff so that it can help you to break them down. Now, the work package contains the definitions of work that you need to be done. And guess another thing that WBS does for you. It can help you to measure your milestone, monitor your project very, very well. If you're any project monitored at the work package level, has very, very high chances of success than the ones that is not, managed at the work package level. The WBS, represent explicit description of your scope and other. So what I'm going to do now is to see, I will go to my board. I'll stop sharing my slide now, go to my board and just give us an example of a WBS. Maybe I'll just take one or two activities and break it down. Then we will come back to this slide and then continue. Welcome, Mr. Jima, on board.
Good evening, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
You've missed a bit, but I'm going to share both my slide and link to the video so that you can catch up. Now, I say WBS, right? Is work breakdown structure. Is decomposing your work into small bits, small measurable parts called work packages. So if I have a 3-bedroom flat to do, a 3-bedroom flat, right? I can say my first thing is what? Number one, foundation. Foundation. So if I have foundation, I will need to now break foundation down further into 1.1 excavate trench. Right? Now 1.2 can be what? After excavation of trench, I can go ahead and maybe take concrete footing. Now, like I said, excavation of trench, you may decide to even break it down further and say that, and do maybe 1.1.1, which is the actual digging. Then 1.1.2, you may want to treat your trench, right? Treat trench. So you can see, you can estimate the duration and cost for actual digging separately, estimate the duration and cost for treating of trench separately. It will now give you the overall duration for excavating trench. So you can see that because it's in how many level now? Level 1, foundation. Level 2, here now is excavate trench. Then the WBS 3rd level, you have decomposed it even further into actual digging and then treatment of trench, right? Then 1.2, concrete footing. If you have if you are unable to estimate concrete footing, as a bulk pack, you can even break it down further. You can make things easy for yourself. For example, on concrete footing, you can decide to just say 1.2 is concrete footing. So the next work package under concrete footing can now be 1.2.1. 1.2.1 you can even say, deliver cement. You can put it there so that you factor the time there and the cost. Deliver cement. You can now put and say, maybe gather sand. I'm assuming you have a source of sand on site. You can say gather or move sand to location, right? So this, you may decide to use one day to move this material to location. Now, by so doing, it's easy for you to estimate the time at this level and estimate the cost of gathering of this sand at this level, estimate the time for delivering cement, estimate the time for the cost of cement, and then you roll it up to get the total cost of your concrete footing. You can even decide to specify time for concrete mixer renting or arrival. You can say rent concrete mixer. You understand? That would be now 1.2.3. You are breaking them into smaller work package. This is what WBS is all about. Hierarchical decomposition of your work into work packages. Work package is the smallest level of the WBS that makes it easy for you to attach time and attach cost at a very, very small level. From there, you can go to 1.3. After concrete footing, it can be maybe foundation wall, right? Foundation wall. Foundation wall, you can go ahead and do 1.3.1. 1.3.1 can be what? There's what we call setting of the first block. The first course is actually the most difficult part of the block working foundation. So you may want to give special attention to it. Setting of block, you may want to give special attention to it. And how do you give special attention to it? You can just decide that, okay, let me say first course setting. First course setting, right? Because if you don't get this particular setting right, the second course and the third course of block may not go well, may not be very, very okay if you do not get this particular setting right. So you may want to estimate it specially. And most masons charge specially when they are laying the first course of foundation. They will charge specially for it because it takes a lot. You can actually use one whole day. And when you are estimating for this first course, don't estimate that the mason who told you can do 300 blocks per day can also achieve the same thing in this first course. You may not be able to achieve it, right? So you need to factor that, okay, this first course is very important. Let me pay them more. If you are paying 40 naira, you may pay 45. Another time you need to increase your estimate is when you get to the top, when they need to start climbing up to lay block. It affects both your timing and it affects both your cost. So you may want to just do 1.31. You may want to do 1.3.2, which is maybe second to third course. You estimate the time separately. Now, some places where the waters are low, you may need to fill your block work with weak concrete. If you don't want to forget it and you don't want to wrongly estimate it, it is advisable you capture it in your WBS. You can now say fill block hollow. Fill block with concrete, right? If you say fill block with concrete, so I'll stop at this level, right? If you say, I'm sure you understand the concept I am trying to derive now. If you say fill block with concrete, you will now estimate the cost of concrete that you will use to fill the block at this level. So it's difficult for you to miss it out. If you just say foundation wall, there is tendency that the material you'll be looking at is block, sand, and cement. But because you have broken it down into the work package, which is the lowest level that is easy to estimate on your WBS, the lowest level of your WBS. Because you are breaking it down to work package, it's easier for you to know that, oh, even though I am doing block work, there is also going to be concrete. So I also need to cost for granite, stone. I need to cost for granite. I also need to cost for a concrete mixer that will come and mix the concrete that will go into the block holes, right? So let me go to my slide. Now, before I go to my slide, let me say that if you are done with 1.0, 1.1, 1.1, you do the same thing for 2.0, which 2.0 is superstructure. So it's good to give them the ID. So the ID is what I call the ID is this 1.1, 1.1.1, 1.1.2. If you need to still break it down further to help you estimate at a very small and minute level, you can go from 1.1.2 to 1.1.2.1, 1.1.2.2. It's like I told you, bottom up. This is bottom up. It takes a little bit of time, but it gives you the most accurate estimate of cost and time when you take your time and you use the bottom up, right? So you can do 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. You can also go ahead and keep doing, 3.0, 3.2. So it's easier for you to just estimate. Let me share my screen again. Let me share my screen again so that we can go ahead. So I am trying to share my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you very much. So those of you who just joined up quite long, not to worry, I'll share the link to this video. I'm recording it. So I've talked about the WBS. Let me just move ahead now. I'll share my slides too, so you don't have to worry too much about. Now, steps to estimating. Identify your activities. I won't take much time because during the course of this discussion, I would have mentioned some of these things. So you need to identify activities. What is identification of activities? Identification of activity is what I've done before. How do I identify activity? 3-bedroom, I identify foundation, I identify superstructure, I identify. That's what we call identification of activity. Then you divide activity into tasks that can be measured. I've done that already. I take foundation, break it into tasks. I take this task, break it into the sub-tasks that takes me to the work package. You need to estimate efforts. Now, this is the one that I said you need to use your assumptions. Expert judgment. The mason will tell you, okay, if we are 2 persons, we can do 300. We can do 300. If I put 2 persons in the foundation, they can dig it in 3 days. So you need to do that. And like I told you, before some of us came into the class, Jim, I talk about basis of estimate. And most times I advise people to assume that only 80% productivity is what you will get. So this is where you do all that. You just assume, even if they tell you they can lay 300 blocks in 2 days, per day, just assume that their productivity will drop by 20% and just estimate 80. So when you are calculating your own duration, you use 240 instead of 300. It helps you to come up with realistic estimates. Even if something happens and they feel headache and they take 1 hour off, you can easily still cope. Now, you need to combine your effort and task estimate to get activity cost. Like I said here, if you can still see my board, if you can see my screen, no problem. What I said was you will now need to now roll your WBS up from that lowest level now of maybe 1.3.1. You roll it up to 1.3.3. You roll it up to 1.3. Then 1.3 will roll up and sum all the 1.2 to up. Now I'm going to introduce us. I won't treat it, but I'll introduce us to a, how do I call it, a tool that helps to roll this thing up automatically, which is going to actually be my next class, right? Not today, of course. Then you need to be able to reconcile estimates. Reconciliation of estimate means you eliminate divergent estimate. I'll talk about divergent estimates very shortly. I'll talk about that so that you understand what I mean by eliminating widely divergent estimate. Now, okay, after that, you need to determine the cause of divergence. Now, what do I mean by divergent estimate? Divergent estimate is simply, an estimate that you have used expert judgment. And even though I said you can get the pessimistic, optimistic, and most likely, and use your formula to get, what the average is, right? You will discover that sometimes if the gap is too much, you need to go and find out why is the gap too much. Why will one mason tell me that he will use 30 bags for 1,000 block, and another mason will say that we use 5? You can see the difference is much. Then another person may even tell you 40. You need to now, especially if you are not a quantity surveyor, you need to probe it further and say no, something is wrong somewhere. So how do you do that? Number one, these are the things you need to probe. Number one, you need to know that one of the causes may be that the scope of the project is not adequately understood or it has been misinterpreted. So immediately you try to look for expert judgment and the divergence is too much, then you need to go back and ask yourself a question: have I communicated the scope well? Communicating the scope, like I told you, is the work you want to do. Do I understand the work I want to do? And do the people also understand the work I want them to do? You have to quiz that and you have to investigate that. Then next is that the function and activity breakdown is not accurate. So it's possible that all this activity I broke down on the board, if you break them down wrongly, or each of the experts you gave, for example, quantity surveyor Banke and quantity surveyor Sukomi, are giving me estimate for the same work, and I see that quantity surveyor Sukomi has given me 2 million. Quantity surveyor Banke has given me 5 million for the same work. I need to now carry their activity breakdown and weight. Are there things that Sukomi missed that is making his own 2 million or Banke capture? For example, foundation work in a waterlogged area. Maybe I gave the drawing and I describe it to the 2QS that this foundation is in a waterlogged area, and Banke decided to add cost of filling all the foundation block with weak concrete. 1,200 foundation block filled with weak concrete is not small amount of block, and Sukomi did not consider that. So that means Sukomi's activity breakdown, I need to carry it and quiz it. It will now show the cost of divergence. Then historical data used for estimating may be inappropriate for the application and maybe obsolete. Now, let me give us a practical example. And we are about to mobilize to site on a project. Let me tell you guys the funniest thing that happened, right? It's a site and services project, right? So we just finished one not quite long. And it's a small land, 3 hectares. The one we finished was 3 hectares. The one we're about to do is 2.2 hectares. So what I did was, when we did that work, I think we spent, if I'm not mistaken, maybe about 8 million on the drains, the drainage work of the site. So what I did was, okay, if I spent 8 million to do 3 hectares, site and services, and I want to do site and services in the same environment, the sites are close to each other. And I said, okay, let me just prorate. And I'm prorated, and I think I got 5.something million, 5.4 or so to do a 2.2 hectares. After that, I submitted my cost analysis, and I asked management, I need approval of 5.4 million naira to do drainage on this 2.2 hectares. So after that, I now gave the QS in the office work to say, okay, let's now see if I can even get a bottom-up estimate. Now, let me just tell us another important bottom-up estimate. If you want to buy material, you cannot just use parametric, analogous, or top-down. That will not break down into activity. Because if you break down into activity like this, you can easily calculate the quantity of cement, the quantity of sand, the quantity of stone. So at the end of the day, when they finish doing that, a drain that I thought will cost me 5.4 million went to 12 million naira, I think 12-point-something million naira. Are you following me? And he gave me cause for concern. I said, no, something is wrong. I must get to the root cause of this. Guess what? This number 3 cause of divergence was what was wrong. My historical data was wrong. I just prorated, forgetting that cement has gone from, I think, 3,000 something to 4,600. Can you see something is wrong? My data has become obsolete. I did not update it, and I prorated. Then something else that I found out was that the drain we did were two courses of block work, 9 inches block work, and there were 2 courses deep. So the depth of the drain we did in this site was, I think, 2 courses, I think about 600 mm. But the one that my QA just estimated now was 3 courses because of the terrain of the place. So can you see that my data was obsolete, and I should not have used analogous at all or parametric at all? I was supposed to go directly and use my bottom up. So this is another cause of divergent estimates. All right, so I have 1 minute to stop this class. Then we go into question and answer. But let me just quickly introduce us to project schedule, and then I will draw the curtain here and tell us what is coming next after this class. Now, if you have finished estimating your project, what do you do with the values of figures that you have gotten? What you do with them is to schedule. You schedule your costs, you schedule your time. Scheduling time means you allocate the start date and end date to each of your tasks and activities so that you can get the overall duration. Scheduling also means you allocate costs to each of the tasks, and the scheduling helps you to know how much you need at a specific time. If it's going to take 10 weeks, without scheduling, you won't know how much you need in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, all the way to week 10. And most clients will not want to just gather 20 million and give you one because the project is 20 million. They'll want to know week 1, how much do you need? They'll disburse the fund according to the activity. So scheduling, if you don't know how to schedule properly, you will miss your timelines when it comes to project delivery of milestones and then cost. I was talking with the accountants last weekend. It was a very, very interesting session with the accountants hub. So one of the importance of schedule, I tailor-made the class to the accountants. So I told them that project scheduling is what helps them with the cash flow. So if you want to do a cash flow for your project, it is project scheduling that will do it. I have a class coming up. I will announce it very soon, the date. And I'm going to teach us how to use a project scheduling tool called MS Project. And I am inviting both quantity surveyors and accountants to that class. The reason is because I want to teach accountants how to use MS Project to do a cash flow. Even if, no matter how complex the project is, and it's even taking 12 months, that's 1 year, that software can help you draw the cash flow. And you know, week 1, week 2, week 3 month, 1 month, 2 month, 3, how much you need. And you just schedule the cash flow. It helps your budgeting. It helps the accounting department to know how to disburse funds. And the procurement department, MS Project can also schedule your material so that procurement department will know when to buy what material for you. When do you need cement delivered? How many bags? If total you need 1,000 bags, 300 bags is week 5. Scheduling just takes care of that. And there is a software you can use for that. And it makes life easy for everybody, right? So let me just introduce us to scheduling. I'll close the class and I'll beg us to just watch out for the next, class that I'm going to advertise. And it's going to be practical. I'll teach us how to use that software. Scheduling in project management is the listing of activity, deliverables, and milestones. That's scheduling. Then a project schedule is a timetable. So all this story about scheduling is a timetable. But this timetable is a special timetable because there's what we call the Gantt chart. I will discuss it in my next class. There's what we call the Gantt chart. There's what we call finish to start, starts to start relationships that you are attached to your activities to help you schedule it properly. There's what you need to be familiar with your predecessor activities. There are attributes so that you can use that MS Project to be able to draft reports. You can do a lot of reporting, cost and time reporting. You can measure your project performance, what we call SPI and CPI, cost performance, schedule performance using that software. So a project schedule is a timetable that organizes your tasks and resources and the due dates in an ideal sequence. That's where MS Project scheduling tool comes in. Sometimes you can't do it with your head. Do you know that sometimes, right? 2 days plus 2 days is not necessarily 4 days. It depends on the relationship of the activity. The activities are going to be done in parallel. 2 plus 2 is not equal to 4. So you may say that, okay, if I have 10 activities taking 2 days, automatically I have 20 working days to do the work. It may not be that true. But for a very complex project that has maybe up to 1,000 activities, you can't do it with your ordinary brain or ordinary head. So that's when you now need this software. Even if you have 5,000 activities, the software will schedule it for you, calculate the duration, calculate the cost, and then even calculate the cash flow when each of them come in. So the timetable, the due date in an ideal sequence. So the software will sequence your activities for you. Even if there are 5,000 activities, it will sequence them and tell you the delivery date of each of them. I'm going to be introducing us to that software in the month of July. So watch out for that training. The schedule will also include plan start date, duration, and it can assign resources. This scheduling software, you can put in the quantity of cement, quantity of iron, quantity of stone, quantity of sand for each activity. Then when procurement department wants to procure, they can go to that software. It will aggregate all of them. whether it's in wheelbarrow, whether it's in tons, it will aggregate all of them and tell the procurement the total volume of sand or stone to procure. So it's a very, very important tool for anybody who manages projects to know. And that tool is called the MS project, used for creating schedules, project plans, and then project can be done efficiently, quickly, and put everyone on the same page. That's another thing this software does. The sponsor, the management, everybody, once they have access to it, automatically it shows everybody what to expect, what time. They don't need to call you each time. Okay, and on the 28th of July, where will the project be? On the MS project, I can monitor the progress. You can enter the progress. Is it 100%? Is it 50%? Have we spent this? How much have we spent so far? What's our estimate at completion? What's our estimate to complete? What is our actual cost? This software just solves all those problems for you. And it helps to organize our work and reduce chaos to the barest minimum. So I'm going to treat all that in my next class. Thank you very much. Let me take comments, questions, answers, and then we close the class. We have about 30 minutes. You can unmute yourself and speak, make comments, ask questions, or you use the chat box. Yes, Mr. Jimbo.
Yeah, yes, sir.